Okay, great. I see that we're recording. Awesome. So again, welcome. I'm thrilled to be here with all of you today. We have what I know will be an excellent panel of educators and administrators from Tomball Independent School District. In this session, the presenters will share how the district promotes high-quality instruction, a collaborative culture, and trust in order to ensure positive outcomes and experiences for all students, including students with disabilities. Panelists will share examples of how they create an environment to ensure all students feel like they belong, and how they use evidence-based literacy practices and inclusive technology to promote access to high-quality instruction. So I'm Caitlin Anderson. I'm a researcher with the American Institutes for Research and part of the knowledge development team here with the Progress Center. And then I have Swati as well here to assist with any technical issues, and she'll also be helping to monitor questions that come in the Q&A box. And we'll also introduce our fabulous panelists from Tomball shortly. But before we begin, I'd like to just sort of provide a little bit of framing for our conversation today. Many of you have probably already seen this slide in an earlier event during prepping for Progress, either yesterday or today. We like to use a staircase graphic to illustrate these different steps in the process of designing and delivering high quality educational programming for students with disabilities. And you're going to hear from panelists at Tomball ISD about how they do this in their district. And so as you can see, we begin with an emphasis on high expectations. And we're referring to the high expectations and also collective efficacy, or our belief in our collective ability to positively impact students. Next, we have student belonging, which is an important component of a sustainable ecosystem with the capacity to develop and implement high quality educational programming for students with disabilities. Educators must also know their students and their circumstances well and individually, and be able to articulate what we want students to be able to do. And at the far end, we also need to know what knowledge, skills, and strategies students need to meet ambitious goals, and how success in the general education and show success in the general education classroom. So keep these things in mind as we hear from Tomball today. And also another thing I'd like to ground this in today is the truth that all students are general education students first. And as I've heard it from some of the Tomball educators that are here with us today, all means all. And additionally, of course, some students need, because of the impact of a disability, special education and related or supplementary aids and services to fully access and progress in general education, similar to their peers. So next, I'd like to briefly introduce our panelists. Dr. Michael Webb currently serves as the Chief Academic Officer in Tomball. In this role, he leads Tomball ISD Systems of Teaching and Learning. He's also fulfilled an appointment as an adjunct professor at Sam Houston State University. He served as a board member on the Texas Council of Administrators in Special Education, or TCASE, and has served as an advisory board member for the Center on Inclusive Technology and Education Systems, or CITES. Previously, Dr. Webb has served as the Assistant Superintendent of Student Support in Tomball ISD, and as a Director of Social and Emotional Learning and Senior Manager of Child Study in Houston ISD. We also have Carrie Williams, who currently serves as the Special Education Director in Tomball. She holds a BA in Communication Sciences and Disorders from the University of Kansas and an MA in Speech Language Pathology from Wichita State University. She served as a planning co-chair for the Texas Council for Administrators in Special Education, or TCASE, and a regional representative for the Gulf Coast Administrators in Special Education, or GCASE. With over 20 years of experience in the field of public education, Carrie has also fulfilled the roles of speech language pathologist in USD 305 in Kansas, as well as in Tomball ISD, and as a program specialist for assessment and assistant director of special education in Tomball. We are also joined by Ursula Hurt, who currently serves as a specialized support teacher and special education department chair at Tomball Junior High School in Tomball ISD. She holds a bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary studies with a major in communications from the University of Houston Downtown, and she's currently working towards a master's degree in educational leadership. She's been working in special education for about 9 years now. And then finally, but last but not least, we have Nisa Glenny-Winkle, who serves as an elementary principal, and she's has a Master's of Education in Educational Psychology from Texas A&M University. She's previously served in the role of Program Specialist for Instruction and Intervention in Tomball ISD and as an adjunct instructor at Lone Star College. And so next I'd like to turn it over to our panelists from Tomball ISD to talk more about what improving access and progress for students with disabilities looks like in their district. And I'll hand it over to Dr. Webb to begin by introducing himself and his role and to describe Tomball's boulders. Then he'll turn it over to the rest of his team to have a few opening remarks, and then we'll open it up to some Q&A. I might start us off with some questions if we need to, but feel free to go ahead and start adding your questions to the Q&A box as well. With that, I will turn it over to Dr. Webb. Thank you.
Thank you, and good afternoon. We're very excited to be a part of this session, and thank you again for the fantastic introductions. We'd like to start with this idea that special education leaders in Tomball ISD are not responsible for the outcomes. We're responsible for the people who are responsible for the outcomes, and that is a higher level of responsibility that includes that requires us to help promote a culture of where all kids with disabilities have equal access to the curriculum. It requires us to make sure that we have processes and systems in place that enhance a teacher's ability to directly impact the outcomes of students with disabilities. We are in the process, and this is an ongoing process of transforming our system of special services from one that is compliance-based to one that is based on educational outcomes. And in order to develop or build that environment, we focus on three main boulders that drive all of our work from the curriculum instruction department. The first one is the collaborative culture. Tomball ISD is a PLC model district. We are one of only 8 in the Southeast region of the United States. And what that means as a model district is every single campus is a model PLC campus, and every single content team and grade level teacher team work in the collaborative process every week. We have time within our master schedule that is carved out in addition to conference times to allow teachers to collaboratively plan together around these 4 questions of what is it we want kids to know, how will we know that they have learned it, what will we do if they don't, and what will we do if they already do. So this process is absolutely inclusive of special education teachers, and we feel that we are the highest performing district in the Houston area because of our Tier 1 instruction and because of our dedicated and intentional effort to include all of special education teachers into this collaborative process. Our second boulder is high quality instruction. It is based on the assumption from the perspective of special education. We don't buy different programs for special education. We don't have different things that we do for kids with disabilities. High quality instruction is focused on the concept of making sure Tier 1 is highly effective for all students. And Tier 1 is built with the student with a disability in mind, and we have accommodations and we have adjustments and we have supports to where students with disabilities have a fair opportunity to access that Tier 1 instruction. But all of our boulders are based on the cornerstone of trust. We have to have a culture of trust in our districts, in our district, where we trust our teachers to be instructional designers. We hold our curriculum loose in Tomball to where we allow our collaborative teams to plan the execution and implementation of the curriculum in these collaborative meetings. But then we hold our assessment tight in Tomball. So we have a regimen and routine of district benchmark assessments and universal screeners that are standard across the whole system so we can understand, are all kids responding to our educational environment? It is very important to for us to make sure that special education leaders are represented at the district level to make sure we're planning for the student with a disability in mind first and proactive. And then at the campus level, special education leaders are also included in that leadership team. So speaking of leadership and the best special education director that you can find, I'd like to pass it over to Carrie Williams.
Thank you so much, and thank you for letting us be here today to talk with you all. It is such an honor. We are fortunate in Tomball ISD to be in a district that does have such a commitment to high quality instruction for all, and really meaning all means all. From our superintendent, who was a special educator herself, to Dr. Michael Webb, who you just heard, who is also a special educator, diagnostician, director as well, all the way into the classrooms. It's great to have that shared vision and the commitment. Something Dr. Webb always says that hits home with me is, when you're trying to put those initiatives out there and make sure that you're really sharing that vision, you've got to have that political sponsor. And we've got that in our superintendent and our school board and in Dr. Webb, to be able to make sure that we can promote that vision and that collective commitment for all employees in Tomball ISD. One way that we do that in Tomball ISD is by our curriculum access tool. Excuse me, we call it CAT for short, because we always have to have acronyms in our world in education. And so what that is in our district is programs that provide text to speech, speech to text, text leveling, dynamic leveling. So looking at content and language supports for students. Translation if it's needed. There's bibliography tools, higher level looking at things that they can do when working with literacy. And if you think about our curriculum in our schools, it is so dependent on reading across the board in so many ways. And so these tools allow for a flexible way to meet the diverse needs of all students, to be able to break down any barriers there might be to accessing that curriculum, that higher level vocabulary, the higher level problem solving, looking at, working in that text or with that literacy, and taking away some of those barriers. And what's great about these tools, they were purchased several years ago by the district, not through special education, because it was for all students. And what's great about that is when it's for all students and the teachers can really take ownership of that, all teachers, and incorporate these tools into their lessons, into their curriculum and what they're doing with the students, then when there is a student who does require this type of a tool to overcome a barrier due to their disability that may be written into their IEP, it's not going to look as different. It's going to be part of the norm. It's going to be something that is universally in those classrooms. It's being used by all students for different reasons, for different variances, or by the whole class, maybe in a lesson for certain things. And so it's going to hopefully help make that a little better for those students, for them to be independent in accessing that curriculum. We do have an example of one student. She was with us before we got these curriculum access tools, and we were working with her. She was struggling. She's a student with a visual impairment, and we're looking at all the different services and supports we were providing for this student. And she just was really struggling, to the point where we're like, ooh, do we need to look at modified curriculum? Do we need to look at other things for her? What kind of services and supports do we need? And it was right around that time where we began using those curriculum access tools with her, and she just started thriving. It was really just providing her that access through those means, where she was able then to access that curriculum and truly show us her abilities and let those abilities shine through. And she got to the point where she was able to start taking some advanced classes just with some supports and accommodations in those classes, no modifications, no anything, and just really showing us how well she could do when you just provide those students those tools to be able to access, and really looking at the diverse needs of all students. So that is just one way we track, or that we provide supports and services for our teachers and our students. We also provide that shared vision through the data, like we show the campuses. How are we collecting data on these tools? Are they really beneficial for students? With these particular tools tools, we're able to show them words read on their campuses. So how often are students on there? How many words are they reading on these tools? Or how many words are they writing on the predictive spelling tools? And then how does that correlate with the scores that we're seeing in our PLCs when we're analyzing how they're doing and progressing on certain standards? And so that's a really great way to keep the campuses and the district involved as well in that collaborative and vision. And so just in looking at that, like I said, there's so many ways that as a team and working together collaboratively and sharing that vision, that we have that standard for high quality instruction for all of our students. But I think one of the best people to talk about it are those people who are actually in those classrooms and working with those students. And we have a wonderful one with us today. Her name is Ursula Hart. She is a specialized support teacher, special education teacher in Tomball ISD. And so I am going to pass it over to Ursula.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you so much for this opportunity. So like she said, I'm a specialized support teacher, which just basically means I'm a teacher that pushes into general education classrooms, and I support those classrooms and students there. I also support the teachers on our campus. I am also the department chair, so I work with lots of different teachers and lots of different students across the board at our campus, which is really fun and really a privilege to do. I think one of the biggest things that I focus on is like communication, collaboration with the team. I want to ensure that our teachers know how to implement an IEP, that everyone that works with a student knows what different terminologies are, what acronyms mean, like how do we engage in an art meeting. All of these things play into how we support our students. Being able to attend the PLC meetings is a really big one also, because in the PLCs I can push for how we can incorporate activities or accommodations into assignments that will make them more universal for the classroom, as opposed to just singling out individual students. We're targeting all of the students because all students can receive accommodations, which I believe helps our kids that are in SPED to feel more free to use their accommodations. Because we will notice when we're tracking data if they're maybe not wanting the classroom notes as much. Maybe they don't want to pull out their Chromebook and use their curriculum access tools because no one else in their group is doing that. So we're pushing for maybe this whole group here, we're all going to do this on the computer today so that everyone uses those curriculum access tools, especially because everyone has access to them. Even I have access to them as a teacher. So we all get to use them. And then that's another key piece, is that we get to ensure that they know how to use that. So all of these things work together. We're collaborating, we're making sure that students get the specially designed instruction and that it becomes a part of the norm for their day. I'm really big on rapport building. We do have students that have behavior issues, and those are things that are impacting their ability to access the curriculum in the classroom. So I'm really big on building rapport, finding out what helps students to be motivated to get their assignments done. So that's really a lot of fun. I actually probably enjoy that the most part of anything I do in my job. And then the other piece is just really working with teachers. Like, how do I help a teacher to have buy-in, to really see that they do have time to implement these things, that they do have time to incorporate this into maybe their lesson where it becomes more normal for them as well. The PLCs help with that, but also just individually talking to teachers helps with that. And just collaboration with the team. Like, we set the tone at the beginning of the school year for what we want our school year to look like for not only the staff, but also for our students. We're making sure we're building those connections with parents so that we can get to know our students better. A lot of students are coming in, especially at a Title I campus like I work at, with a lot of issues that are from home. So we want to make sure that we know about those things, and getting to know our kids helps us to better serve them. So with all of that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Nisa Glenwinkle. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ursula. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to come and share our practices today. So my name is Nisa Glenwinkle, and I have had the opportunity to serve on many of our elementary campuses in Tomball ISD. I'm currently looking forward to retirement and doing some consultant work, but I am so happy to share our systems and practices that we use in Tomball. So as a campus administrator, probably the very top priority for us is to make sure that our campus staff members have a shared belief around all students. that we are committed and we guarantee that all students are going to master learning, those essential standards that we have identified as our guaranteed and viable curriculum. It's important that as the leader of the campus, and Dr. Webb often says that we're not responsible for the results. We are responsible for the people that are responsible for the results. And so our job to support all of our staff members is really important in that we have to establish the belief and celebrate that belief that all students are general ed students first. And as we begin to program for our students with disabilities, that we align their goals and objectives to that general ed curriculum. It's really, really important that we think of all of the different ways that we can accommodate for students so that they can access that general curriculum just like their non-disabled peers. And so creating systems around our campus culture and our campus procedures and processes is really, really important in that our special ed staff have to have a voice. They are also included in our leadership, just like at the district level. Our district leads much of those process and procedures, but at the campus, it's my responsibility, our campus administrators and leaders' responsibility to ensure that our systems include and champion our teachers who are responsible for implementing those IEPs. From a great example is that they are in very critical positions of creating our master schedule. They have a really loud voice in that we plan all of our services first, and then we plan our master schedule for our campus around those services. So prioritizing our students who receive services. So leadership's very important. Those systems that are put into place. We talked about the PLC process. It's really important that our brand new baby teachers, along with our veteran teachers, have a system in which they can work and be successful in reaching every student to guarantee that all of our students are mastering those essential standards that our teacher teams are developing. And I guess the next thing that I would say is that collaborative culture piece is a foundation for all of our campuses. To be able to protect that time that teachers collaborate together to identify those essential standards and then talk about who is mastered, who has not mastered, and how are we going to intervene, and when are we going to intervene, and what strategies will we use. Most importantly, how are we going to follow up, and when are we going to follow up, and how are we going to systematically collect that data. You know, the more systems that we have in place, the less mental capacity that we have to use, so that we can save all of that brain power to serve our students and design learning. So I could go on, but I'm going to stop there and turn it over to Caitlin, because I know that you're going to have some questions for us. So Caitlin.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is great so far. We do already have a couple of questions in the chat that feel like pretty direct follow-ups to some of the things that were shared. So I might just jump into some of those. So one relates to something, Nisa, you were speaking about with that sort of collective efficacy and collective responsibility piece. There was a question about, was there some sort of specific professional development or training that you all use to help everyone see all students as everyone's responsibility and to want to include them in instruction? Like, how did you actually provide the PD and training and support to make that happen?
That's a great question. So and I've been in the district a long time. Carrie and I've been rocking at this for a long time. Over 20 years. So I've seen the evolution. And so that's a really great question. I would say that around 2017 is when we really started diving into a specific format. So we've partnered with Solution Tree for that format. And I mean, I know that there are other vendors out there that, I mean, there are other ways in which to, to learn and to receive that PD. That's just one way that we've decided to have a common language and to utilize those resources for PD. There's a PLC at Work Institute that our teams have gone to. They're global. When Dr. Webb referred to being a model PLC district, many of our campuses are model PLC campuses. Solution Tree is that organization that supports and promotes that.
Great, thank you. And I do just want to highlight for folks as well that there's a little bit of question and answer happening in the chat as well. And so there was a question about how long the district's been at the current level of inclusion and how long was the ramp up. I don't know, Dr. Webb, I see you're responding in the chat, but if there's anything you'd want to add as a follow-up to that, feel free to do so.
Sure. So like what Nisa said, we've had many campuses that are model PLC campuses. And in order to be a model PLC campus, you really have to show evidence of your inclusive efforts. And to become a model PLC campus, you have to show strong data that shows academic growth of students with disabilities. And that's true also of the district designation. So we only have the district designation for 2 years, but we had campuses becoming model campuses for about the last 8 years or so. Also, what's important is our special education population has doubled in just 8 years, and that's a factor of us being a fast growth district for all kids. I think what's special about Tomball is our campus leaders and Carrie have done a great job of protecting the culture and the systems, even though that the number of students in special education have been increasing substantially. We're right now at about 2,400 kids. That might be more than that. What's the number now, Carrie?
We're at 2,700 now. See, we're growing so
2,700.
fast, we can't keep up with the numbers.
Yeah. So, and we only have 24,000 kids in the district. So we've gone from a percentage around 8% of the overall population to now that I think that's going to be closer to over 13.
11 and a half, 12, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. There's also been a couple of questions both in the chat and in the QA box about specific curriculum access tools. And I see, Carrie, you mentioned a few here. So one was a question about, can you provide just the resources, like the exact tools that you're using, and also specifically any that are literally used by everyone? And you mentioned a few, Carrie, here.
Yeah, so originally it was through Don Johnston is who we went through, and they were Snap and Read is the name of the speech or the text to speech. And then they also have Co-Writer, which is your predictive text piece, and then UPAR, which is the assessment piece to see how it benefits the students and really look at the data on how the students use it and what that's like. They have since, I think, been kind of changing companies. So there's lots of tools out there. We're always analyzing and looking at, do we need to switch up what those are? But I think just looking at, there's so many tools out there on Google, on Microsoft, you name it, right? And so it's really just finding something that works for you and your district that provides that accessibility for the students. So whether, that ability to be able to, have that text spoken to them, maybe highlighting, there's Bookshare for students who qualify. There's Learning Ally for students who qualify. In Texas, we have a Texas Library Books program as well. And so there may be things in different states that are free out there for students, but we liked these particular tools because they were available for everyone. It wasn't just for students who were identified with a disability or having those difficulties that you had to show to have access.
Yeah, we're starting also, we have initial implementation at one campus of artificial intelligence in the classroom too. So we're partnering with Power Schools and their Power Buddy AI system. So we're at the very beginning of this, but I don't know if the AI systems can help, or it might supplant many of our curriculum access tools now, because it appears to be right now they have the same features. and can also serve as a personal tutor for all students. But I'm very interested to see how it's going to impact our students with disabilities.
Great, thanks. Please continue to add questions into the Q&A box. Is there anybody on the panel who'd like to add anything or just a comment or follow up to anything else that's been shared so far? I know we've been talking about a lot of great examples and just wanted to check if anything else came to mind.
Just to add to the access tools too, one thing to keep in mind when you're looking, or if you are looking for your district, is to always be thinking about what can they use after school, right? So once they graduate and because our goal is always for independence and for them to be able to independently use these tools, just like we have predictive text on our text messaging, right? Like most of us have that, we're already used to that tool. So what are some things that we can teach them that they can use in their adult life after high school, so we're setting them up for success?
Carrie has a really strong system of establishing about 4 to 6 department goals that are very measurable and that are tracked over the course of a school year. And school years get very hectic and crazy. And but when the dust settles at the end of the year, the question is, did we move the needle on these 4 to 6 specific priorities that we established at the beginning of the school year? The department goals also, in many cases, become part of the appraisal system for diagnosticians or LSSPs or speech pathologists, and making sure that I think that because special education often can be consumed with crises, and then at the end of the school year is like, if you haven't been able to show that you've made progress, and I think that really impacts just the feeling and the quality that the special education team has, and are we making an impact? And the biggest value, or the biggest way that we can reward someone is to be able to show them that they are making an impact. And I think that that goes back to the department goals that Carrie helps to establish.
Great, thanks. I see another question came into the chat. How do you engage families, including families with students with high support needs, intellectual disability, students who rely on AAC, for example, to have high expectations for access to general education classes, and why that's important?
You're now hitting my speech pathology love here. But so we do have several students with AAC. Ursula personally could probably talk about one who we love her to death. She is in all general education classrooms, and she has an AAC device using eye gaze. And so completely nonverbal student, and just really doing well in general education classrooms with her device and with some supports and services. We also have students who do require more support, more services and supports that are have high diverse needs. And so with those students, our goal is to just really look at those individual needs. So instead of, I think in the past we used to think, this student, this is going to be this program, or this is going to be this program. And so what we talk about with our staff is, no, let's look at the evaluation. Let's look at what those needs are. Let's look at what their abilities are, where their strengths are, and then design a plan that fits them. And so if that doesn't fit into this programming or that programming, that's okay. We're going to say they need this type of inclusive setting for this, or they may need to be pulled into a more special education setting so that they can really work directly on this particular skill, but it's not an all or nothing. And so I think that's, again, what I love about the district is we're really looking at the individual needs of the students, not just, you have to have this special ed setting or this gen ed setting. It's what does the student really require to make that progress for them.
And I can speak to that on a campus level. It is truly individualized, and I think as a campus leader, what I really appreciate is that there's a common belief about that practice. That it doesn't have to be, what we typically do for every student. It is truly individualized. We're really proud of the programs that we put together for individual students when they look a little bit different, because we know that it is truly individualized. And when you know, when staff members look at us and go, we're doing what? Right. And then when we align it to that evaluation and, oh, okay, we can see where this program for a student might include an odd accommodation, but it aligns to the evaluation, the support that we get and the alignment of that belief that it is individualized, it's not cookie cutter, gives us really great outcomes for our students, and our parents really appreciate the programming that speaks directly to their child, and they appreciate the understanding that we know your child is a learner really, really well, and so what I appreciate is just that support. It's really important.
Right, and I'll add to that as well. I'm sorry.
No.
As far as like the family support, from speaking as a person on a campus with a student, we invite the families in. So I already know, like this week coming up when we return back for in-service and we're there, I'll be meeting with the family. I'll be meeting with the student. She's been emailing me over the summer, telling me about all her vacations she's been on. And it's so encouraging because her family does have high expectations for her already. So I didn't have to talk them into it. Like there are times when I have to really tell parents like, hey, I've seen similar situations. I know all students are different, but if we just give this time, we need to give them time to process and work it out. We're working out all the kinks. We're getting everybody used to it. We're building this team on the campus because it's all new. This student coming in was new, and people did have expectations that, well, is she in the right setting or not? And we can use data to track that. We can show, like she took a STAR test last year. She was able to navigate different things with eye gaze. She's learned the campus. Like there's so many different ways that we can build encouragement and then give that student the wings to be free to fly as high as they can. So families always appreciate that collaborative part. We are big on communication, so we talk about all kinds of things. And I mean, it's just awesome to see the kids grow when we're able to engage their families in such a positive way. Like I said earlier, we always reach out to families. The specialized support team reaches out to our families on our caseload every year at the beginning of the year before we have to call them and say, hey, there's an issue with the student, before we have to call and say, hey, the student didn't pass this test, how can we encourage them? We're already looking for the positives. I'd rather start there with positive communication and collaborating with that family. And I make it a point to tell families that I'm here to partner with them for the betterment of their student, because all their hopes and dreams are wrapped up in their kids. Like, I mean, I don't have special needs kids myself personally, but I could imagine that it must be difficult when you have a student and you want to see them have all this high achievement and the success. I have kids that have highly achieved, my own personal kids. And how can I get other kids to also participate in that too, to the best of their ability? I've seen some amazing turnarounds from kids that come out of a LIP or a low incidence population class into a gen ed setting, and given the right tools, they're crowned homecoming Duke. Like, I mean, they're so popular and they're doing all these different things. So strategizing and working with the team and making sure everybody knows, like, this is who we are as a culture, as our campus, as our district, making sure teachers coming in that are new to our district, especially, understand our culture and our heart in Tomball is a really big deal. So yes, but bringing in those students' families and letting them see the campus where their students going to be, and going into junior high is a big transition, even for the families. Like, how can we bring them in and let them know that we're here to support them as well? So those are some of the ways that we support our families in Tomball.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm seeing some awesome comments in the chat as well about some of the extracurricular opportunities, which of course are crucial for things like student belonging as well as family engagement. I wonder, Carrie, do you want to say anything more about the Unified Champions for folks, just in case people aren't as familiar with that?
Sure. So that is through Special Olympics as well. So we started off with Special Olympics with the events that Dr. Webb put in the chat that are just kind of the highlights of our year that we have. But Special Olympics kind of shifted to doing Unified Champion Schools. And so what that does is, and I love it, it is pretty much full inclusion with students with disabilities, students without disabilities, all coming together to do some sort of an activity. It could be anything from kickball to bowling to I don't basket weaving, you name it. Whatever that school determines is what their kids would be excited about and want to be involved in. And so they come together as a campus and they form groups, and they can eventually start having competitions within the district with other campuses. They could go outside of the district with other campuses and other districts, and just really unifying that campus as a whole. So there's not this division of, oh, you're a student with special services or you're a student, you know, who doesn't have any. It's really that unification of we're all students and we're going to work together on one common goal in a fun activity, and we're going to do it together. And so we just really started making that shift in the last about year and a half. And we started off that first year with 6 campuses, then we grew to 13 last year. And our goal is to continue growing to make all of our campuses 23 now. We're growing so fast, I can't remember how many campuses we have, to make all of our campuses unified champion schools so that we can have that in our district.
Well,
And
thank
there
you
is
so much.
benefit to our special ed department, our staff and our students. However, the impact to our students and staff without disabilities is really incredible and improving the outcomes of our community.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Well, I wish we had so much more time. We actually have to wrap up now. I am going to ask Swati to put a few different links in the chat so that you can connect with the Progress Center, access some of our resources, and find us on Facebook or Twitter, X as well. But thank you to our panelists. Thank you so much for taking the time out, for sharing all of your knowledge and experience with us. And hopefully everybody has a great rest of the day and is able to join our closing session in about 15 minutes. Thank you so much.